This month on the Boomer Music Experience, Randy and I are talking about Johnny Cash. Randy, there was always a Johnny Cash album laying around my parents' home, and it just goes with the times that you and I are about to enjoy this show about the one and only Johnny Cash, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
Sounds great, Dave. Yes, Johnny Cash, the man in black. Yes. Johnny Cash. We're going to take a look today and share with our audience, Dave, the early years of Johnny Cash. Then we're going to focus on his prime time years and then his legacy. So we're going to divide it up into three different subsections, and I think the audience will really, really enjoy this background. It's fabulous. To start off, John R. Cash was born February the 26th. That's coming up soon, 1932. And John passed away on September the 12th, 2003. Now, everyone knows Johnny Cash as an American country singer and songwriter. Much of Cash's musical contained themes of sorrow, but also some moral tribulation, some redemption, and especially in the later years of his career, forgiveness. He was also known for his very deep, calm, bass baritone voice and the distinctive sound of his Tennessee 3 backing band, and it was kind of characterized like, what would you call it, like a train chug-a-lugging back in those days. And his trademark, his nickname, as we all know Johnny Cash, the man in black. Johnny was born to very poor cotton farmers in Kingsland, Arkansas. Cash rose to fame during the mid-50s in the burgeoning rockabilly scene in Memphis, Tennessee. And it's this rockabilly music, Dave, I want to share this with our audience too. This rockabilly music is now the forefront of line dancing. So you could, in fact, say that Johnny Cash, through his introduction of rockabilly music, has now inspired many line dancers in today's world of dance. Quite interesting.
Did not know that. That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Well, we had in Memphis, Tennessee, he joined the Air Force, but that was a short stay. He had some health issues. So he then began doing concerts. And, when he started these concerts, and this is a key phrase that we need to share with our audience, when he was doing concerts, he would always introduce himself by saying, "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash." Every concert he did, that was his first sentence to the audience. And then, of course, followed by that was the song Folsom Prison Blues. And that's one of his signature songs, one of many, which we'll get into later on down the road. Well, let's review that now, in fact. His signature songs, okay, we have the Folsom Prison Blues. We also have I Walk the Line. We all know that one. And, of course, Ring of Fire, Get Rhythm, and Man in Black. So basically you could say all of these songs are Johnny Cash's signature songs, and there's no other artist in the history of music, be it pop, country, or whatever, that can say that they have 6 signature songs. Would you agree with that, Dave?
I was going to say that's an outstanding point. I never really thought about it that way, but you're totally right. And the distinction of his voice and his songs, you knew, and they were very powerful. And I think that's how he could make them signature songs, because you knew as soon as you heard it, right? It was Johnny Cash. Mm-hmm. And like you said, those songs right there that you mentioned were the ones, obviously the most popular, but probably and the highest impact on all the charts. But they're just
Hmm.
So grounded in our society, even today.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. And he also recorded a couple of humorous songs too. One was "One Piece at a Time."
Yeah.
Now, this song, believe it or not, is very popular at car cruise nights. They just love Johnny
Didn't
Cash,
know that.
"One Piece at a Time." The Corvette shows, cruise nights, wherever, they always ask for this song, "One Piece at a Time" by Johnny Cash. And of course, the other hilarious one, which we will all identify with, "A Boy Named Sue." A Boy Named Sue? Wow. Powerful. And of course, we mustn't forget, down the road with his wife June, he recorded "Jackson." And that went quadruple platinum. The year for that was 1994. His wife June,
Really?
they duetted
I didn't know that.
together, and
Wow.
what a great song, "Jackson." And to this day, Dave, I still get numerous requests for that particular song. I kid you not.
I
Yep.
didn't know that.
Yep.
Huh.
Johnny
And
Cash.
obviously with his music you get lots of requests, I'm sure, too.
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't matter, does it, what kind of dance it is?
Yeah,
It can be
absolutely.
literally anything from a country dance to a rock and roll dance. They still want to
Yep.
hear Johnny, right? Bring a fire,
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows
And what do
Johnny
you-
Cash.
What do you attribute that to? Why is his music, and you as a DJ, why does it resonate so much? What's the secret behind it,
I think
in your
mainly
opinion?
there, Dave, is because of Johnny Cash's background. His family was very, very poor as he was growing up as a child, and he wanted to share to the world in his music, in a very humbled way, songs that people who financially were not well off and never have been in his career, he wanted to reassure them through his music that life can get and will get better. Not just financially, but
So he
in other areas of life too. And I think that...
So he talked to the everyday guy.
Oh, absolutely. And those two or three thoughts there made Johnny Cash a legend in his time. Wouldn't you agree, Dave?
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I think you nailed it on, hit the nail on the head there, because I think people related to him. You know what I mean? Like you said about his upbringing, just dirt poor and just finding a way to survive. He sort of was that indicator for the rest of the society in that era to say, hey, it's okay, we're going to get there. But yeah, the balance in his music, how humble it was, and I guess so, how truthful in a lot of cases, but just that generation could relate to it for sure. You could see that now as you look back, and you can understand the value of that music in that time.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And Johnny Cash, he is one of the best-selling musical artists of all time. Ready for this? Johnny Cash has sold more than 90 million, that's right, 90 million records worldwide in his lifetime. I can't even comprehend 90 million vinyl records. Like, wow.
That's like every single Canadian having 2 of his records. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you think about it. That's crazy. That's great. Good for him, man. That's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. And two, we must share with our audience, Dave, with Johnny Cash's genre, it didn't only include country music. It also included rock and roll, rockabilly, blues, folk, and gospel songs. And also, too, he was one of the first artists to do the crossover appeal. In other words, his music transcended country music, or as they called it back then, country and western music, but also the pop era too, the popular music. And that's what a crossover song means. He's successful with it in one genre, he's successful with it in another genre, and that song goes up the Billboard charts. And of course, Billboard is the gospel of music. And he shines in country and western, he shines in pop, he may shine in rockabilly for a particular song, possibly rock and roll. So here we have a man who has a multiplex of musical genres, and good for Johnny Cash. And he was inducted, of course.
Was he the first, Randy? Was
yes.
he, in your opinion, was he one of the very first to cross over?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Yep. He was the first crossover artist ever. Yep, Johnny Cash.
Wow. And you think, I know that you and I have talked off air. I know Elvis was into the gospel and Johnny was into the gospel, and they had met early on. But I mean, it's kind of interesting to see the dynamics that way, right? That he was able to do it. That, like, wow. I wondered, I knew he must have been right there at the beginning of it, but that's pretty cool.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's, and because of that, and because of his versatility in his music genres, Johnny was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. So his career really was dramatized in the 2005 biopic Walk the Line, in which Cash was portrayed by American film actor Joaquin Phoenix. And he did a phenomenal job acting Johnny Cash's part. Just unbelievable. But you can see here with his multiple genres why he would be selected for the various Hall of Fame awards in the different music genres. Quite an accomplishment.
It's amazing. Yeah. Wow.
So a little more on Johnny's early life. He was born J.R. Cash in Kingsland, Arkansas, February 26th, 1932. To his mother, Carrie Cloverly Rivers and Ray Cash. Okay. He had three older siblings named Roy. There was Margaret Louise and Jack, and also three younger siblings named Reba, Joanne, and Tommy. Now, his background is primarily, Dave, English with a little bit of Scottish descent. So, that's very interesting. And you can listen to a raft of Johnny's songs, and you can see the English and some elements of the Scottish coming out not only in the medleys, but also in the lyrics of some of his songs that he sang. So Johnny Cash, in 1955, he signed with Sun Records. Now, Sun Records, during that time, they were as big as Epic Records, Decca Records, and Columbia Records. Those three record companies controlled the entire sequence of vinyl during those years. We're talking, again, the mid-50s. So, wow, unbelievable. Johnny Cash's early memories were dominated, here again, by gospel music, a lot like, again, the late Whitney Houston. Same idea. And also radio. He was taught guitar by his mother. And as a childhood friend, Cash began playing and writing songs at the age of 12 years young. How good is that?
Start him young.
Now, when young Johnny Cash, at that time, though, he had a high tenor voice. And his bass baritone voice had not changed yet. So he's got a fairly high-pitched voice at the age of 12, 13 years. So he sang in basically high school events. He sang on a local radio station. So here again, he's getting lots of practice using his voice. And he released an album, which was a series of traditional gospel songs called My Mother's Hymn Book. He was also significantly influenced by traditional Irish music. Wow, which he heard performed weekly by Dennis Day on the Jack Benny radio program. Now, this, of course, is before Jack Benny went live on TV. But how good is that, Dave? Like, wow, Dennis Day performing on the Jack Benny radio show. And then, of course, Jack Benny on TV. Well, we all know we're all eternally 39 then, correct? Oh, Lordy.
You never know where the influence is going to come from some of these artists. That's an interesting point.
That's for sure. Yeah. In 1954, Johnny Cash met his first wife, Vivian, and they moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and where he had sold appliances while studying to be a radio announcer. At night, he played guitar with Luther Perkins and bassist Marshall Grant. Cash worked up the courage to visit Sun Records studio, hoping to get a recording contract. He auditioned for Sam Phillips by singing mostly gospel tunes. And Phillips was also humored to have told Cash to go home and sin, then come back and write a song I can sell. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, 1955. Well, there you go. Eh?
Eventually, Cash won over the producer with new songs delivered in his early rockabilly style. And in 1955, Johnny Cash made his first recordings at Sun Records. The one song was Hey Porter and Cry, 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 which he released in late June of 55 and met with success on the Country Hit Parade. So this was his first development and involvement in country and Western music, circa 1955. On December 4th...
He's a success right off the go, eh?
Oh, wow. Absolutely, Dave.
That's amazing, too, that he's a success, first album out. So that's really cool.
And, of course, Sun Records, they were the record company in that day in 1955. Okay, Epic Records were big,
well,
so was
Elvis,
Decca, Columbia, but they were on their way up. But it was Sun Records who had established themselves throughout the world as the record company to get booked with.
Yeah, it's, there's some great stories that I've read about that era with Cash and Elvis hooking up, and there's a few of them. I'm sure you're going to get to it, but interesting stuff, eh? That era in the music, small world, because all these mammoth legends collide before they're even legends, before they're just starting out. It's kind of crazy.
That's right. On December 4th of 1956, Elvis Presley dropped in on Phillips with Carl Perkins in the studio, cutting some new tracks, along with Jerry Lee Lewis backing him on piano. Well, look at this. We have Elvis. We have
look
Carl
at that
Perkins,
dynamic.
we have Jerry Lee Lewis. Like, these are prime time rock and rollers. Wow. And Cash, he was also in the
Carl
studio.
Lewis, he never...
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
He never gets his due, does he, Carl?
No.
Carl never gets his due, I don't think. And
No.
he's one of the best guitarists of all time.
That's right. And he's still wearing those blue suede shoes.
There you go.
And that was back then, that's what they called a gold record. Today, they would call it a platinum record in sales. But anyway, Johnny Cash was in the studio when Presley was in there, Carl Perkins was in there, and Jerry Lee Lewis. And the four of them started kind of like an impromptu jazz session together. Phillips left the tapes running, and the songs were recorded. They were mainly gospel songs that survived. However, they released an album under the name of the $1 Million Quartet. How appropriate. And in
Yeah,
Johnny
exactly.
Cash's, that's right. In his autobiography, Cash wrote that he was the farthest from the microphone and sang in a higher pitch to blend in with Elvis Presley. How good is that? Wow. Hokey.
Pretty cool.
Of course, Elvis, the rock and roller.
Yeah, I wonder if they knew at the time, right? I wonder if they knew how big each of them would become. You know what I mean? Like they were stars then, but they're iconic, right? Mm-hmm. And we just recently, and Jerry Lee Lewis not too long ago had passed away. But I mean, we've never did a show on him or Carl Perkins. We got to keep that in mind for down the road.
For sure.
Those are a couple icons that we need to talk about.
Yep.
But I can't even imagine being in that room. That's pretty cool. That's darn cool.
Especially with Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis. That would be heaven. Well, Johnny Cash's next record, Folsom Prison Blues, made the country top 5. His I Walk the Line became number 1 on the country charts and entered, here again, the pop charts, the top 20, here again being the first crossover artist with I Walk the Line. And here we're looking at, David, July 1957. Wow. And that same year, Johnny Cash became the first Sun artist to release a long-playing album. In other words, a 33 1/3. And hey, we're talking July 1957. In 1958, Johnny Cash left Phillips to sign a lucrative contract. Here we are with Columbia Records this time. And his single, Don't Take Your Guns to Town, became one of his biggest hits. And he recorded a collection of gospel songs for his second album for Columbia. So now he is well established with Columbia Records, and he's ready to go. Columbia Records recognized the talent in Johnny Cash, and they were so happy to sign him in. And Columbia Records, Dave, is an integral part of Johnny Cash's career in music. Wouldn't you agree?
From what I've read, I think Columbia, they recognized the value of him, and he was climbing at that time. His son was a fair size record company, but he wanted to play with the big boys. And like you said, he did want to do gospel music. So this was an opportunity to maybe fulfill some of the wishes that he wanted to do as a musician and touch the audiences, that he wanted to touch.
Yes, indeed. And his rendition of Ring of Fire, here again, this was a crossover hit, reaching number 1 on the country and western charts and also entering the top 20 on the pop charts. So Johnny Cash, well established. In the mid-60s now, we take a look at Johnny Cash, and he released a number of what you call concept albums. His Bitter Tears in 1964 was devoted to the spoken word and songs addressing the plight of the Native Americans and the mistreatment by the government. So here we have, in 1967 now, Cash's duet with June Carter. Sorry, I think I said 1994. We'll just add another
you said
20 years to that.
1964, yeah.
1967, Johnny Cash and June Carter recorded Jackson, and of course it won the record of the year at the Grammy Awards. And speaking last night, we saw the 65th version of the Grammy Awards. Quite interesting program. So here's something, Dave, that we need to share with our audience. Johnny Cash proposed, this is on stage now, to his second wife, June Carter. He proposed on stage February 22nd, 1968, at a concert at the London Gardens in London, Ontario, Canada. Yes, February 22nd,
I read that
1968. Story, he got down on his knees.
He caught her by surprise, too.
Oh, did he ever? But London, Ontario, Canada. Wow. Yes, that's a huge yes for Johnny Cash, the Man in Black. Wow. Unbelievable. So here we have it. Johnny began performing concerts at prisons in the late 1950s. He performed at San Quentin State Prison. And some of these performances you can catch on some of his albums, too. One in particular, Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison. That album was produced in 1968. Johnny Cash at San Quentin in 1969. Now, both these albums, of course, were live, and they both reached #1 on the Billboard Country Album charts, both of these albums. And because of this, Johnny Cash became an international hit maker, and he even eclipsed the Beatles, selling 6.5 million in albums overall. Hey, that's something I didn't know. I thought the Beatles had the all-time record for album sales. But hey,
me too.
Johnny Cash, 6.5 million albums. That's better than good.
Did not know that.
Wow, I never knew that. Wow, good for Johnny Cash. The Folsom Prison record was introduced by a rendition of his, of course, Folsom Prison Blues song, while the San Quentin record included the crossover hit, A Boy Named Sue. How good is that? Those are two excellent songs by Johnny Cash. So here we have Johnny Cash with his multitude genres. You can see why he was such a successful artist, and especially in high demand of the major record companies in that time. Now, from June 1969 to March of 1971, Johnny Cash starred on his own TV show, The Johnny Cash Show, on the ABC network. And it was produced by Screen Gems. The show was performed at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. And the Statler Brothers opened for Johnny in every show he did. The Statler Brothers and the Carter family and rockabilly legend Carl Perkins, there we go, were also part of the regular show entourage. Now, Johnny also enjoyed booking mainstream performers such as Linda Ronstadt. This was her first TV appearance. Our own Canada's Neil Young, Louis Armstrong, Neil Diamond, Kenny Rogers and the first edition. James Taylor appeared on his show. Ray Charles appeared on his show. Notice the different genres here now. Roger Miller, Roy Orbison, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Derek and the Dominoes, just to mention a few. So
Wow.
Johnny Cash, the Johnny Cash Show is not just about country and Western music and songs. Of course, indeed, he incorporated portions of his show for country music and Western music. But also, he had all of these other genres from these superstars performing in that time. Like, how good is that, Dave? Like, unbelievable. Neil Diamond.
And they all probably wanted to be on his show. Like they knew who he was, how big he was already then. It was probably a blessing, an honor to be welcome to that show and to perform, right? Talk about crossover audience. They were getting it right there.
Oh, absolutely. Just really, really good. And there was another artist that I forgot to mention to our audience, Dave, on the Johnny Cash Show, Chris Christopherson.
Yes. Yeah, yes.
And at that time, he was making a name for himself, too, as a singer-songwriter, Chris Christopherson. So the closing program of the Johnny Cash Show was a gospel music special, and the guests included the Blackwood Brothers, Mahalia Jackson, Stuart Hamblin, and Billy Graham. Wow. In the early 70s, Johnny Cash had established his public image as the Man in Black, fully established. He's regularly performed. Like most of his colleagues had the rhinestone suits. They had the cowboy boots and all that. But Johnny Cash, he wore entirely black suits with a long black knee-length coat. And this really, Dave, this really stood out amongst the other country and western male singers. But Cash said he wore all black on behalf, ready for this, on behalf of the poor and hungry people of the United States of America.
Did not know that. Interesting.
What a statement.
Very powerful.
That's huge. That's huge. In the mid-1970s, Johnny Cash's popularity and a number of his songs began to slightly decline. Johnny's friendship with Billy Graham led to his production of a film about the life of Jesus entitled Gospel Road, A Story of Jesus. Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, they appeared several times on the Billy Graham Crusade TV specials, and Cash continued to include gospel and religious songs on many of his albums. Good for Johnny Cash. Good for him. Very, very good. Now, Johnny continued to appear on TV, hosting many Christmas specials, of course, on CBS, and in the late 70s and early 80s. In the mid-80s, he appeared in a starring role in an episode, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Of Columbo. How good is that? Peter
I got to
Falk
look that up now.
and Columbo. And that was
that
entitled Swan Song. And of course, June, she appeared in an episode on Little House in the Prairie.
Yep.
And let's see now. There was another performance Johnny appeared in, the American Civil War miniseries. It was a cameo appearance representing John Brown. So here we have like Johnny Cash and June Carter on these television shows, like unbelievable. And here's something that probably most of our audience would not know. Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, they appeared in Dr. Quinn, the medicine woman, in the reoccurring roles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Dr. Quinn, that was a great
that was a good TV show yeah.
too.
Yeah,
so, wow, this man certainly
diversity,
truly a terrific legend in his time, not only in music but in other areas of life, in gospel readings, in TV, and we can go on and on and on. In 1980, Johnny Cash became the Country Music Hall of Fame's youngest living inductee at the tender age of 48 years young. But during the 80s, his records failed to make a major impact on the country charts. However, what he did, he rebounded. Circa 1985, he recorded and he toured with Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, and Chris Christopherson, and they called themselves the Highwaymen. What a group of musicians. Wow. So they made 3 hit albums, which were released beginning with the original title Highwaymen in 1985. This was followed by Highwaymen number 2 in 1990, and the Highwaymen, The Road Goes On Forever in 1995.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
This is incredible. But also during this time with the Highwaymen, Dave, Johnny appeared in a number of television films. So talk about a busy man, I'll tell you. Talk about a busy man. In 1986, Johnny Cash returned to Sun Studios in Memphis. This time, he teamed up with Roy Orbison, the Crying Man.
Oh.
Also, he teamed up with Jerry Lee Lewis and Carl Perkins. So the 4 of them, Cash, Orbison, Lewis, and Perkins created an album entitled The Class of 55. Wow, how good is that? And they did
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
A lot of their hit songs in that album, The Class of 55. So, he's moving in all different directions, and good for Johnny Cash. He was so well loved and appreciated, not only his music, but as a person, very humbled and very kind. Wouldn't you agree on that one, Dave?
Yeah, and I was going to say, just working with all those other talented musicians, it seems he didn't have an ego. You know what I mean? He was willing to, like you said, with Roy Orbison, with the Highwaymen, like all those guys. It's what an opportunity for him too. So kudos to Johnny Cash for doing that. I mean, that's, back then it was probably a little bit of an unheard of, and then all those super groups, super country groups, and wow.
Oh, absolutely.
What an opportunity to revitalize and do music.
Yep. And in 1994, Johnny Cash, he teamed up with Brooks and Dunn, okay, mega superstars in country and Western music, as we know. And so he teamed up with Brooks and Dunn to contribute Folsom Prison Blues to the AIDS benefit album Red Hot Plus Country. And it was produced by the Red Hot organization. Now, on the same album, he performed Bob Dylan's Forever Young. So here again, he has an association with Bob Dylan. And this is just incredible. And here again, we have to go back again to the number of music genres his music represents. And you can see it in the history, prime time in his music career. And in 1996, Johnny Cash collaborated with the late Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on Unchained, which won the Best Country Album, the 1998 Grammy Awards. How good is that? Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Wow.
Yeah, I'd read a piece in one of the books I'd read on Tom Petty about that, and he was just so honored to be able to work with Johnny Cash. Like, it was just he was one of Petty's icons, right? So to have that opportunity for Tom Petty was pretty cool. And I know Dylan did some work with Johnny Cash too, like legends with legends. Pretty cool. It's not very often you get to see that, but it seemed like they all wanted to work with Johnny Cash, and they understood what he could probably do for their careers as well, and how much it would help him. So it was a great working environment, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. Now we take a look at the later years, in Johnny's life. Johnny Cash was hospitalized in 1998 with severe pneumonia, which damaged his lungs. Now, during the last stage of his career, Johnny Cash released the albums American 3, Solitary Man. That was released in the year 2000, and American 4, The Man Comes Around, in 2002, and American 4 included cover songs by several late 20th century rock artists, notably Hurt by Nine Inch Nails and Personal Jesus. And tragically, June Carter Cash, she passed away on May 15th of 2003 at the tender age of 73. June had told Cash to keep working, keep recording, keep on doing what you do best. Unbelievable. He performed surprise shows at the Carter family outside of Bristol, Virginia. At the July 5th, 2003, this was his last public performance, he began singing Ring of Fire. And Cash read a statement that he had written shortly before taking the stage, and I quote, "The spirit of June Carter overshadows me tonight with the love she had for me and the love I had for her. We connect somewhere between here and heaven. She came down for a short visit. I guess, from heaven to visit me tonight and to give me courage and inspiration like she always has. She's never been one for me except courage and inspiration. I thank God for June Carter. I love her with all my heart, unquote. How good is that?
Wow. That's very powerful stuff. Yeah.
That says it all. Yeah. Johnny Cash.
It does. It's incredible.
Unbelievable. Johnny Cash, he passed away of complications from diabetes September 12th, 2003. And although, you kind of look at his life, his career, and I truly do believe this, Dave, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. He was a singing legend in many different genres, a singing legend in his time. And there's not too many artists over the past decades who can say that. I can't think.
I totally agree.
Anyone.
And I think, yeah. And what you said about that last message that for his late wife, I mean, I think that just resonates of how strong of an influence she was on him and his music and his life. You know what I mean?
Oh.
To keep him on the straight and narrow. And
Yep.
just, they were such a team.
They were.
They were a team.
Yeah. June Carter Cash was indeed his rock.
Yep. Totally agree with you on that. I think that's a very good point to bring up at this point in the show as well.
We now take a look at Johnny Cash's legacy. Johnny Cash nurtured and defended artists such as Bob Dylan on the fringes of what was acceptable in country music, even while serving as the country music's most established and visible symbol, the Man in Black. And there were 2 tribute albums released shortly before Johnny's death. Kindred Spirits contains works from established artists, while Dressed in Black contains works from many lesser-known musicians. In total, Johnny Cash, I never knew this, Dave, Johnny Cash wrote over 1,000 songs and released dozens of albums. Wow. In 1999...
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. Johnny Cash received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. This is the top award that any artist in their lifetime of singing, it's the pillar. It's the top of the list. You receive a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. That is the absolute best. Now, in 2004, the Rolling Stone magazine ranked Johnny Cash 31 on their 100 greatest artists of all time, and number 21 on their 100 greatest singers list in 2010. Now, in 2012, Rolling Stone ranked Johnny Cash's 1968 live album at Folsom Prison and the 1994 studio album, American Recordings, number 88, in the list of the top 500 greatest albums of all time. What an honor. Hokey Dinah.
Yeah, two
incredible.
albums. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. In January of 2006, Johnny Cash's lakeside home on Caudill Drive, that was in Hendersonville, was sold to Bee Gees vocalist Barry Gibb and his wife Linda for a cool $2.3 million. Wow. So here we have the Bee Gees, the Gibb brothers kind of getting into the act. I just want to explain Hendersonville to our audience, Dave. Hendersonville is in the state of Tennessee. And they've also named a street after Johnny Cash, the Johnny Cash Parkway in Hendersonville, Tennessee. So basically, there we have it. The life and legacy of Mr. Johnny Cash, the Man in Black. Wow. What a
well done,
lifetime
Randy.
story.
Yeah, there's so much there that I learned about Johnny Cash that I didn't know. Like I said, there was albums around the house when I was a kid, and you always listened to them, and you always thought, "Wow, this guy's pretty neat." Boy Named Sue was always on there, or Folsom Prison. You heard all those songs, and you kind of wondered about this character, but you filled in a lot of the blanks that I didn't know about. As we talked about earlier, as a DJ, what's the most requested you get then of Johnny's?
Oh, wow. I would say it's a cross between three of his songs. Number one, Folsom Prison Blues. That's got to be the top requested song I get from Johnny Cash. Now, there may be other DJs who have other songs that Johnny has sung that they have more requests for, but from my own standpoint, from Classy FM Professional DJ Services, Folsom Prison Blues, Ring of Fire, and I Walk the Line. Those are the three top songs that I get as requests for any given dance I do, be it a theme dance, be it a 50s, 60s dance, be it a fundraiser dance, or be it a special wedding day. Johnny Cash.
Is he constantly on your playlist too? Like even without request, do you have him in there?
Oh yes, yep, absolutely, yeah. He's a mainstay.
Interesting, eh?
Definitely a mainstay.
Yeah, that's wow. Well, I got to thank you for doing this today and bringing it all to light. I mean, it was a hard road for Johnny Cash in his life. I know that. We didn't get into that other aspects of it, but he made it through and he made a difference. He made an impact, like you said, in all areas of society. And for that, and his music, we're eternally grateful, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Dave. And I just want to share a little note with our audience here.
Sure. Not sure what he's doing, folks, but it's Randy, so I'm sure it's something exciting he's got planned.
Now, this is attention to all of the males today listening to our broadcast. Don't forget, you won't forget, 1 week from tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So remember your sweetie.
It's a reminder.
On Valentine's Day.
Yep.
Red roses.
And we have a lot of ladies that listen too.
And
listen to our show. So ladies, don't forget that gentleman. Yeah.
You got it. And a heart full of love. Celebrate with your sweetie 1 week from tomorrow, Valentine's Day, February the 14th. Excellent.
Randy, you have a great Valentine's Day, and thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Dave. And you too. Have a great Valentine's Day next Tuesday. Boy, time flies. Anyway, we will talk to you next month, and we'll discuss a featured artist for next month's show, too. And I really, again, sincerely enjoyed doing this program with you, Dave. The life and times of Johnny Cash, the Man in Black. Thank you very, very much. You have yourself a